Is the most powerful supernatural warning you have received? This is a true story from my life and it took place in the early 2000s. I've always been a shy person, and wasn't always noticed by men. I was always overlooked for my more assertive friends who had no problem being noticed and asked out. It was a really beautiful summer day, and I had been asked to dinner by a man that I met at a party at a friend's house. He seemed really nice, very intellectual, and he worked at a hospital in the psychiatric department. As a therapist, I thought he was very sweet, and instead of having him pick me up at my apartment, I was going to meet him at the restaurant. I got dressed, had my makeup on, and as I was about to leave my home, I had a very uneasy feeling, like something was wrong. The feeling didn't go away as I was locking my front door. It was a very dark feeling, and I pushed it to the back of my mind. I thought I was just nervous about the date. The feeling did not go away as I was walking up the street to catch a taxi to the restaurant. It got worse. I felt something tell me that if I was to go through with my plans for the evening, I would never come home again. This feeling wouldn't go away, and it was as if someone or something was insisting that I should turn back. Not just turn back, but not to call him to cancel or even give him an apology for backing out at the last minute. The further I walked up the street, the more this feeling became more desperate and insistent that I turn back. The same thought kept going through my mind: you will never come home again, you will never see another day ever again. I could almost hear someone telling me this, like a voice that's becoming more and more frantic and trying to make me go back home to my apartment. I made it to the corner of the street, and hailed a cab. I got in the taxi, and I, finally, had to accept what I was hearing. I asked the driver to just turn around. I apologized to the cab driver, and made up an excuse about having left something that I needed home. Thankfully, the driver drove me back home, and he was nice about it. As soon as I got into my apartment, I felt amazing safety. I never called this person to tell him that I wasn't going to show up for our date. He called me several times that night, but I never answered. Again, something was telling me to have zero communication with him. A couple of weeks later, my friend and I were talking and the subject of my date came up. My friend told me that I was lucky that I stayed home because the man that was my date was arrested for breaking into an ex-girlfriend's house and beating her to death. This happened the same night that I stood him up for our date. It turned out that he was also a person of interest in some other murders of women, as well as rapes that he was possibly involved in. You could imagine my surprise and relief that I listened to whatever was telling me to stay home. Whatever it was, it knew that something bad was going to happen to me if I went. I never told anyone the full story of what happened that day, not even my friend knows. She only knows that I never went on my date, and nothing else.